Okay, hello, welcome back to the football rundown. Hopefully, we're all doing well, and hopefully, everyone can hear me okay as well. Sorry for the delay. Had a few technical issues. Couldn't get the camera to work for whatever reason. So hopefully, everyone can hear me okay. But yeah, where do I start with this then? Well, of course, I've not been on the channel, not been active on the channel for almost a week. In fact, I think it's exactly a week since the retain list dropped. And of course, we did have the news this weekend that Callum Camps has put pen to paper on a new 2-year deal, which of course takes him up to summer 2027. So Callum Camps is the first player this summer to have signed a new deal, and it does mean we'll be keeping him hopefully for another 2 years. So I think that's great news. I think it is good news. I think it's what we wanted to hear. I think he's been an important player for us this season. I think he really stepped up maybe the back end of last season as well. So I think it's a player which has really come into his own this season. I think he's been unfortunate, maybe picking up 1 or 2 injuries at the end of the season. But I think, a very capable player on his day. And I'm very happy to have him staying at Stockport County, especially with us staying in League One, because I think there was definitely a conversation of if we were to go up to the Championship, would he be able to make the step up in terms of quality? There were question marks over that, and I think there were fair question marks to be had. But I'm very happy that he's staying for at least another 2 years in terms of his contract anyway. And I think it gives us a much stronger chance of going up, having a player like him. But of course, there will be competition for his place as well. We know that Moxon's come in second half of the season in the absence of Camps. He sort of stepped in alongside Norwood. But of course, with Lewis Bate being injured as well. And I think he's done okay. I think it's clear he's a little bit behind fitness-wise, but I think he's had a good end to the season. I've got a few camera issues here because of the TV on in front of me, so that'll be going off. Just had the news on. It's not great news, but yeah, I think that obviously Moxon needs a pre-season under his belt. It probably changes it a little bit for Camps, because I think that before Moxon signed, he was the only player I think that really offered that sort of energy, box-to-box type midfielder, and maybe Collar to an extent as well. But I think now that sort of Moxon's coming as well, and he's got Championship pedigree, I suppose, behind him in terms of playing for Portsmouth. So I think it does. I think it's a different role. I think he's got more competition for his place, and I wouldn't be that surprised if we saw maybe 1 or 2 more players come in that could potentially pose a threat to him as well. So I think it's going to be a very interesting summer. Obviously, it's the first player which we got news on. We know that he's staying now. We're waiting for an update on a few other players. Obviously, still waiting to see if Ibitore's is going to put pen to paper on a new deal, which we know he's been offered. The same with Fraser Horsfall, who I think we're all hoping will be staying. Beyond this summer. A little bit of, we covered it in the retain list, but a few people, not the biggest fan of Ibitore, does seem to divide people. I'm a fan of his, but some people don't like the fact he's been offered a new contract. And look, just because it says that they've been offered a new contract doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to stay. Some of those players might have already decided to have left. They just can't publicise that yet. And I think that, I can't remember exactly how they worded it, but there were 2 players which contracts are out but are still in dialogue with the club. And I think that was Will Collar and Southern Hales. I think that both of those 2 are still, I still think that both of those 2 are going to go. I think that maybe it offered a little bit of sort of optimism, the fact that it said that he's still in dialogue with the club, Southern Hales, because obviously on the Friday it said that he was set to leave this summer. Then the sort of retain list comes out last Monday, and it says sort of that he's still in talks with the club. That probably offers a little bit of glimmer of hope to those that want him to stay, but I still think he's going to move on. And I think that generally, as I've said many times, I think we do need a shake-up in that right-back position this summer. I think there's a case for keeping him. I know people are taking issue with calling him injury-prone. He's not injury-prone. He's had unfortunate injuries. And to be fair, maybe that's the case, and maybe we are being lazy when we talk about Southern Hales and we just brand him as being an injury-prone player. I think it's something that naturally people say when a player picks up injuries. So maybe it has been lazy sort of wording and lazy to dismiss him and say, oh yeah, let's get rid of him because he's injury prone. But maybe the injuries he's got are not necessarily to do with being prone to injury, but being extremely unfortunate. Obviously, Noel has had his injury problems as well, and that's why I probably played a part in him going. Maybe there's a reason why Southern Hales has been or were keen to offer him a deal and not Noel. Maybe it's because they've looked at the types of injuries both have picked up. And like I say, maybe Noel is more prone to injury. Some else it's more just unfortunate that he's picked up the injuries he's had. And are they necessarily proneness to injury, or are they some of those have been in match, in games, so you can't always help that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't want to go over the retain list too much because we kind of covered that last week. But the big news is, and it kind of did come in yesterday, I think, or the day before, can't remember. To be honest, with bank holiday weekend. But we know this weekend that the news broke at Callum Camps has signed that new deal. And look, I could have spoke about this in just a short video, but I thought we would go live on it because I think a lot of people as well are probably quite fed up at the moment. Obviously, a few weeks now without football in terms of going to matches, so I think that it's good for everyone to still have that element of conversation. So this is what came in. If people haven't seen it already, obviously this statement saying Stockport County delighted to announce that Callum Camps has signed a new 2-year deal with the club. The midfielder's contract was due to expire this summer, but the 29-year-old has now committed his future to County until June 2027. So, of course, that'll take him up to 31, which is probably about the right age. We're probably getting him at, they're getting the sort of best years out of him. Camps moved to Edgeley Park, of course, in summer 22 on a free transfer from Fleetwood, and has since gone to make 109 appearances for the Hatters, scoring 10 times. He was a key part of their side that won the League 2 title in 2024, featuring 33 times that season, also winning our goal of the season award for his long-range strike against Forest Green Rovers. And if I remember, that was one hell of a strike as well. And despite injury limiting his impact this season, he featured a further 33 times, chipping in with 2 goals and 2 assists as we recorded our highest league finish since 2002, finishing third in League One. So yeah, massively impressive. And obviously, Simon Wilson spoke. I'm sure Dave Challoner would have spoken as well. I've not read the actual statement properly until now, but obviously it's available on the on the county website if people do want to go in depth and read that. Obviously, we also know about the fact as well. Since last week, they've announced that they're doing another trip to Pinatar as well. So County to return to Pinatar this summer. I think it's the 3rd year in a row, is it? Preparations for the 25-26 season already underway at Edgeley Park. We're pleased to confirm plans for the club to return to San Pedro del Pinatar in July for a 3rd consecutive season. Yeah, Dave Challoner's side will be heading to Spain for a warm weather training camp before playing in the pre-season friendly against Bristol Rovers at Pinatar Arena. So County will be quite familiar with Pinatar at this point, as as it said there, 3 years in a row at in Pinatar for pre-season, if you like. So that's going to take place. They're going to travel to Spain on the 7th of July, so still over a month away, spending 6 days in Pinatar before returning on Sunday, the 13th of July. My understanding is they'll play Bristol Rovers, of course, who are now in League Two, on the Saturday, 11:30 in local time. And obviously tickets information, I think, will come out on that if it hasn't already. But there will be a fan event on the Thursday evening, I imagine, or Thursday midday, 10th of July, as they have done, I think, the last few years. So, anyone that's done that before, I've not done it personally, but if people have done, what's it like? Is it, is it good? Is it worth going to? I suppose, I'd sort of put it to you guys in the chat with that one. But I want to get people's opinions on Callum Camps. Do you think it's the right decision for him to be given another 2-year deal? Is anyone on the fence? Is anyone who doesn't think he should have been offered a new deal? I'm interested to get your thoughts on it. I think the thing is, 2-year deal is about the right length, because 2 years takes us up to the goal of Championship by 2027. There's question marks about whether or not he could play in the Championship. So I think it's right that, the one problem, I suppose, is that if we were to go up to the Championship next season, then we're sat here in a year's time from now and we're saying, actually, he's got a year left on his contract. We're in the Championship now. Is he, what are we going to do with him? But I think in that situation, I think we'd be able to move him on with a year left on his deal. It's not like we're going to be able to command much of a fee, but it's not like it's going to be a huge loss for us as well at that point. So I think we cross that bridge when we get to it. I think what we have done is we've, secured the future of a player which is very capable in League One, and it does allow us to hopefully achieve that goal of getting up in the next 2 years. But obviously, a lot of people will be very confident we can do it next season because of the fact that we've had such a strong season in our first season back in League One this season. And I mean, when you look at it, we were so close to Wembley, weren't we? When you think about it, the playoffs, if the linesman got it right, with the Kelman goal in the first leg, would we not be sat here now potentially having played a playoff final yesterday and potentially being a championship club today? It's fine margins in football, and I think that the thing is, we were so close. We in the end we didn't take our chances in that second leg, and funnily enough, or ironically, I suppose that's probably what happened to Leighton Orient in the final. I thought that actually, if anyone watched it, I wasn't particularly wanting to watch it, but I did turn it on sort of last minute, and I thought it was an interesting final. I thought it was a final which Charlton probably started the better, and I think most people would have expected that to be the case. But when you actually watch it and you think about it, in the end, I thought Leighton Orient, I can't believe how they didn't manage to get a goal when they had a really good spell, maybe sort of 10, 15 minutes into the second half, and they felt like they had the momentum behind them, but they did everything, put the ball in the back of the net, Leighton Orient, which is a bit it's like how I felt about us in the second leg. We had so many good chances and we just didn't take them. And I think in the end, when you have those kind of chances and you don't take them, you can only look at yourselves. And they'll be, Leighton Orient now will be full of disappointment, but they didn't manage to get over the line, because as much as it would have been a huge opportunity for County to go up this season via playoffs, it was also undoubtedly a huge opportunity for Leighton Orient as well. And of course, Charlton, they've been in the Championship before. It's not unusual for them to be at that level. I think it would have meant more to Leighton Orient fans. I think it would have meant more for Stockport County, but Charlton did what they had to do. And I think some people will be happy to see the back of Charlton in this league, to be honest. But yeah, new contract for Camps is great news. Versatile and composed player on the ball. And I agree. I think it is good news. Obviously, as well, we're still waiting to hear back on other players. What's going to happen with Colo? What's going to happen with Southam Hales? What's going to happen with Ibi Toure? Because that for me is still a big one. It's still a big thing for to make sure we tie down Ibi Toure to a new deal, because whether people like it or not, he's a good fullback. He's a good defensive fullback. I don't think he is the best going forward, and it's an easy thing to sort of chuck it in. But he's very good defensively. He's solid. He always plays. He's always available. How often do you see him miss a match? The only time he misses a match is because he's on playing another match for his national team. So it doesn't happen very often. He, of course, did miss the game for his international country during the break in March to make himself available for the Wrexham match, which I thought was commendable. So I think he's someone he's got good experience behind him. He's a leader. I think he is. I think you've got to be the age he's at. I think he's got good experience behind him. I just think that he's a solid player. You can hang your hat on him, and you know what you're going to get from him. So I think that you need players like that. What's going to happen with Rydell, I'm not too sure. But in terms of left back position, I'd like to see us bring in a better left back. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to see someone who's a bit more of a complete left back than both Rydell and Toure. But are we going to find that that left back? Are we going to find that left back? Probably not. And certainly depending on what our budget is as well and priorities in the squad, where do we need to strengthen more than left back? So I do understand and I do agree with the idea of looking at renewing Ibi Toure's contract. Put it this way, I'd be a lot more worried and disappointed if Ibi Toure wasn't staying than if he is staying, because we can always sign a left back. But the thing is, if you lose him, it's not as if, right, Ibi Toure is staying, so we're not going to sign a left back now. No, I still think the club probably are looking at bringing in a left back as well as Ibi Toure. I think they're just looking at him and thinking he's a good option to have. I mean, especially if you bring in a young left back, it's got the potential to be better defensively, but also better going forward, and a more rounded left back. There's not many to learn from and watch from than Ibi Toure in the Football League. So I do think it's a good decision, and I thought that at the time, and a week on from that, I'm still sort of thinking the same thing. So yeah, just some interesting stuff. I saw an interesting thing come out yesterday as well. I mean, this is just generally going to be a bit of a chit chat, and anyone that wants to put any questions in can do that. Like I say, how is everyone dealing with the fact that we've been 2 or 3 weeks without football already, and we've got a long summer ahead without it? So how are people feeling with that one? Has anyone watched the playoff finals? Has it hurt too much to watch a playoff final knowing that County missed out narrowly? Like I say, for me initially, didn't really want to watch him, but there's nothing else to do, is there? The weather's not been great this bank holiday weekend either, so I have watched them. I really enjoyed the Sunderland one. Sunderland Sheffield United final. I thought that was great. Sheffield United 1-0 up for the majority of the game, and then Sunderland getting that goal. And then obviously going and winning it late on in that sort of stoppage time as well. I thought was brilliant. Lee Woodwish has said, "Hi, how are you? I'm good, thanks. I hope you're doing well." But yeah, I thought that was a brilliant final. For Sunderland to be back in the Premier League as well. I think they need that, and Newcastle fans won't like that, but I think it's probably what they need. I mean, they don't have a local team to them, do they? I think the nearest game Newcastle got in the Premier League, I think City, and that's like 4.5 hours away or something like that. So as much as they won't like it because it's their local rivals going up, I think it's great for the Premier League. So that was an enjoyable final. As I said, the League One won yesterday, but it was interesting in terms of Charlton going up. Most people would have said that would have been the case. To be fair, and then obviously I watched the final today, Walsall and AFC Wimbledon, and it was Mouse Hippolyte with the goal, wasn't it? So not the best of finals, to be honest. Probably the weakest one out of the three. But Mouse Hippolyte getting that goal for Wimbledon, very good to see. And as I say, got him over the line. Lee Woodwish said, "Have you any transfer news or rumours?" Well, I think it's been a quiet week. I don't know. Maybe people can sort of come in with rumours if they've heard anything, and maybe tell me where that's coming from. But I've not heard too much. I did hear was linked with a player from Bradford. It was a left back from Bradford earlier in the week, but I'll be honest, I can't remember his name, and I don't know how much there is behind it because he's a young left back. Apparently, his injury record isn't great. I'd take that with a pinch of salt. That's the only name I really heard mentioned. As I say, it is still quiet. The season has only just finished, and we've not quite sprung into the transfer window as of yet. I don't even think it's open, is it, till maybe the second week of June? So I think we'll hear more, in the sort of next few weeks, especially once we hear more about players' contracts, whether or not these players are going to stay, whether or not they're going to sort of move on. I think once all that gets sorted, that's when the rumours will really start to come in. But generally speaking, in the time I've been doing this, Stockport County generally keep things very close to the chest, and you don't hear much come out. I mean, the only time I've heard was linked with a player, and it's actually happened, was maybe the Brecky Anderson deal. Most of the deals we do are generally done very, very quietly and very efficiently done. So we don't really get rumours. Look, I think if we got up to Championship, I think there'd be more media interest, and I think it would have been harder to keep things in-house, to be fair. But I think that, we didn't go up, so we are in League One. I think the media interest from Sky and that isn't there the same. So we're not hearing those rumours in the same way. And like I say, no one's talking about little old Stockport County, are they, to be fair? So I think that in terms of rumours, not heard anything. If anyone has heard anything, do let us know. But yeah, I mean, what areas do we need to be looking at would be the interesting conversation to have. I think obviously right back is something we need to strengthen. We know that Noyle's moving on. There's a chance that Salvin Ellis could stay, but I think he's pretty much going to go, which means you've got to have someone in that position. Jay Mingy can play there, but Challoner said something along the lines of he wasn't happy with the options he had at right back, I think with a few games left of the season. It was something along those lines. I can't remember word for word, but he kind of made out as if he was not happy with the situation at right back. But Mingy can play right back, but Mingy's kind of been in and out all season. I don't really know what the plan is there. So I think we do need to sign a right back, at least one, potentially two. I think left back could do with being strengthened. Centre back, it depends on what happens with Horsfall and Ethan Pye. Again, we're talking about rumours in terms of players coming in. I've not heard much about players leaving either. And some people have anticipated that if we didn't go up this season, then there might be talk of Ethan Pye moving on. I've not heard anything about Ethan Pye moving on just yet. So I don't think the window has really got going yet. And yeah, I think that, as I say, next few weeks, I think we'll start to get more rumours coming. Yeah, I'm just going to read this one. Attacking fullbacks on both sides. Yeah, I think we do need. Well, I think we need attacking left back. Some people would say Ryan Rydell offers that, but I think we just need someone. It's frustrating with Toure and Rydell. I think a lot of people probably thought this and said this, so I don't think it's anything new here. But if you could merge those two into one fullback, you'd have one hell of a player. What we need is someone who's better quality, but we need someone that's balanced. You need balance as a fullback, and I think we need a balanced right back. We need a balanced left back. We need someone that can do a bit of both. So yeah, but I think Toure offers you that stability at left back. Particularly if you're hanging on in the game, even if you've got a better left back in front of him, you can bring him on and help you sort of see out the game. So attacking fullbacks on both sides would be nice, but balanced fullbacks on both sides would be even better. Again, I mean, I prefer watching County play when they play with the fullbacks and a winger in front of them, or even if they're sort of cutting in players. I like to see two players start on each side out wide. And that's a question I'd probably put to people as well. I mean, how many people would want to see us go into next season persisting with that sort of 5 at the back or 3 at the back, depending on how you see it? I can't imagine. Well, I certainly wouldn't want to see it. I much prefer us in a 4, and I think we're stronger in a 4. But I think that does depend on the quality you've got at fullback. I think if Challoner had stronger options at both sides in terms of left back, right back, I think we wouldn't have seen the 5 back as much. I think we've seen the 5 back more because we're trying to protect the fact we don't really have fullbacks which are capable enough to let the wingers play and go and attack going forward. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. Is there anybody at Chester area or interested to get a lift when the season starts? What's that in response to? Who's going Chester? Don't know. We'll find out for you. Can't decide if we need a new striker, trusting Anderson, give him minutes, or bring in someone which will limit his game time. And I think that's a very good question. I think we're going to have to. I mean, it depends on where you sit on the fence. What side of the fence you sit on in terms of the striking options. Tanto Alafi, can he be a clinical goal scorer? Well, evidence of the season before last would say that he can be. I think he got 20 plus goals in the league the year we won the title. But can he be that in League One? Can he be that in the Championship? I'd like to think he can grow on to become that. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure with Tanto. I absolutely love him as a player, but I'm not sure. And I think maybe the fact that he started the season not fully fit and he had to almost build his fitness up across the season, a bit like what Moxon's had to do as well. The reason why that's relevant is because if you've got Tanto who can score goals consistently, and you've got Anderson who could, sort of grow into being that player through having more game time next season, then you've already got 2 strikers there that can score goals and trust them to score goals. In terms of bringing in another striker, and that's what you're saying about. I suppose that's what you're saying about trust Anderson and giving the minutes. I mean, if you could play him and Tanto together, I think that would work well. I think it's well documented on this that what I always question is Cal Wootton, and I think that's the thing, because you can have 3 strikers, and we do have 3 strikers at the moment in Tanto, Anderson, and Wootton. But I think it depends. I think if you're going to bring in one more striker, I think we're gonna see one move on, and I don't think that Challoner is willing to move on Wootton. So because he's an integral part to how we play. I don't think he's obviously going to get rid of Anderson because we've just brought him in and he looks like an extremely promising talent. And I can't see Tanto Alafi going, and I'd be disappointed to see him go. So it'd be difficult to bring in a striker, especially a striker that's capable enough of scoring the goals we need, because they're going to come in and say, well, where's my game time going to be? You've got Wootton, who's played pretty much every game. You've got Tanto, who, if he was fully fit at the beginning of the season, would have played every game. You've got Anderson, which is chomping at the bit to get game time. If I'm a new striker coming in, I'm going to be saying, where's my game time? So even if he wanted to bring in another striker, I don't know if he necessarily can do that unless he moves, sort of takes one out of the equation. And then the question is, which striker does he take out of the equation? Which striker does he look to move on? And that's where the fan base could get a little bit divided. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one. I'd like to look. I'm going to say I'd like to see us bring in another striker, but it would limit Anderson's game time. Of course, it would. But it's a trade-off, isn't it? I mean, rotation could be more of the thing. I don't think we've done that enough this season at times. Lee Woodward has said we need Championship players. Well, how do we get hold of them, though? How do we get hold of them in terms of the budget? Because I don't think, as much as we've been backed by the ownership since they've come in, it's not always in terms of handing out big transfer fees and big wages, like maybe some other football clubs, and I'm not going to name names. So I don't know if we've necessarily got the budget to go out and buy Championship players. You're looking at getting them on a free transfer. And to be fair, how many times are you going to get a Lewis Spate in on a free transfer? It's not going to happen that often, is it? So I think that when you get those deals, they're absolutely brilliant deals to do. But when you're working on a low budget, it's very difficult to get Championship players in. and County want to do it sustainably, and that means you probably are. It probably is going to take a little bit, a little bit longer to get there because you're probably going to have to, take on players which have the potential to be a championship player, but they're not championship sort of players now. And I think that's the thing. So I agree with your point. I'd love us to bring in championship players. It gives us a much better chance of going up to championship next season, and it also gives us a much better chance of staying in the championship once we're there. But I think that, like I say, do we have the budget for that? I'm not sure what our budget looks like. And even if let's say people spoke about maybe Ethan Pye being moved on and getting a big sort of a big fee in for him, and how that might sort of enable us to spend money. But the thing is, if you sell Ethan Pye for, let's say, I don't know, 10 million, right? For you to replace Ethan Pye, everyone's going to know you got 10 million. So the fact that you've got 10 million is irrelevant because you can't necessarily reinvest that across the squad and get good quality players. I don't think, unless you're extremely shrewd in the market. But let's face it, if you get 10 million in for Ethan Pye, then you've got to replace him with someone who's just as good, if not better. That's going to cost you, and then maybe you sign one more player, and that's your budget gone. And do the football club want to use all that 10 million that you get a Ethan Pye on transfers, or do they want to reinvest some of that in other areas of the club as well to make sure that sort of grows up to being a championship standard club as well as as well as the playing squad? So I don't know how we're going to find the budget to be bringing in championship players. He's also said I think it should bring in about 6 or 7 players, and I think we will probably bring that many in the end. I think if you look at how many players we brought in last summer, in the end it was probably around 6 or 7. I think we will, because I think you see that happen at this level. There's always large turnovers in squads typically at this level. I think as you go up the leagues more and the higher, it's sort of longer duration contracts get handed out, it's harder to move players on, so there is sort of less turnover in the squad. But I do think we'll see 6 or 7 players come in. Like I say, I think we already need at least one right back, possibly a left back. So that's already 2 players. Then you're probably looking at someone in the midfield position. You could easily bring in 5, 6 players and it'd be sort of justified. And that's even necessarily not necessarily with players moving on. That's maybe even adding to what we've got at the moment. So if you lose some key players, let's say an Ethan Pye or Lewis Spate, then you've definitely got to bring in 6 or 7 players. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I am excited for this summer as well. I'm excited to see who comes in. I know some people said, "Oh, there's going to be big changes." I think I've probably been guilty of saying it as well at times. But what we got to remind ourselves is we finished third. We finished third, so we were just a few points out really from finishing second and going up automatically. So in terms of big changes, I think it's got to be the right changes, not necessarily big changes, but the right changes. And I think that's 1 or 2 players probably do need moving on. Maybe it's the right time for 1 or 2 maybe to leave. But I don't think we've necessarily got to let's get 15 players out and bring in 10. I don't think it's necessarily like that. I think if we've finished mid-table, we could say, look, there's potential here, but there's some players which are clearly not good enough, and then you move on. And maybe then you could have that sort of drastic clear out. But we finished third, so we were on the cusp of automatic promotion, weren't we? And even on the playoffs, we went out on penalties at the end. So fine margins, really. At the end of the day, we were inches away from going up, and in terms of getting to the final, and we could have finished second as well. If you sort of look across the season, if we don't, some decisions went against us. Some games we just didn't turn up, and some, and we weren't good enough. You sort of correct 1 or 2 of those scores, and you're probably promoted automatically. So fine margins. I don't think it's necessarily going to be big changes, but I think it's going to be the right changes. I think 3 million is the ballpark on what could be realistically expected from signing Pye. Well, I think we get more from him than that. I don't know how long's left in his contract. I'd imagine at least a year or 2. I think we would command higher than 3 million. And to be honest, if like I say, if he's got 2 years left on his deal, let's say, and someone offers me 3 million for Ethan Pye, I'm laughing in the office as I'm chucking them out, because I don't think 3 million in this market is really going to cut it. You look at what Birmingham spent last season, in League One, or reportedly spent in League One last season. Even Wrexham to a degree. 2 million for Sam Smith in January. So I don't think that 3 million would be enough. I think you've got to be looking over 5 million. 2 years. Yeah, I thought it would have been about 2 years. I panic if it was a year left. I think 2 years is kind of comfortable. And I think it's got to be more than. I think it's got to be closer to 10 billion than it has 3 million. Put it that way. But I can see what you're saying. I mean, look, 3 million wouldn't really do much to invest back, would it? I don't think. Louis Barry keeps popping up. We should get Louis Barry back. I mean, look, it'd be great to have Louis Barry back. I said it before. There was a graphic which was put out by Sky, I think, during the playoffs, which showed about how well County had done in 23 matches without him compared to 23 matches with him, and we were slightly better off from a stats perspective without him. But for me, I think, like I say, Louis Barry would be brilliant to bring back. There is slight concerns over the fact of his injuries. He picked up an injury with sort of a Hull, which kept him out for the majority of the second half of the season. He picked up, of course, that injury in October the year before against Crewe, which obviously kept him out for the majority of the season. So there's a bit of a pattern there, which I wouldn't say label him now as an injury-prone player, but it is something to be wary of. And like we're even in a position to necessarily pick and choose about whether or not we can bring him back on, in the first place. There's going to be a lot of people interested in Louis Barry this summer, and if Aston Villa's logic in January is anything to go off, they want him to be playing Championship football, which of course we can't offer him. So I'd be all for bringing back Louis Barry, but I just don't know if we can get that deal done. And also, there's also a little bit of me which is like, well, let's say we bring him back, he'd be on a loan, wouldn't it? So it's his third loan spell in 3 years at Stockport County. Where's the progression from that? Are we just constantly going to be loaning him? Because at some point we're going to have to start to develop a sort of own players of that quality ourselves if we're going to get anywhere. So we've managed to get third. We managed to maintain our form without him. So it's not the end of the world, if we don't bring back Louis Barry. There's a sort of a recruitment team in place there that found him in the first place, and we brought in players like Jaden Fevre and Jack Diamond who have really excelled in the sort of latter part of the season. So I don't think it's the end of the world if we don't get him, but of course County would be a stronger team with him. There's no doubt about that. But I wouldn't worry too much about getting hold of Louis Barry just yet. If anything, I'd actually be more concerned about trying to tie down Brad Hills for another year, because I thought he was unbelievable in that second half of the season. And it does sometimes make you think, imagine if we had both those players on loan at the same time, we probably would have definitely have gone up. So yeah, I worry we'd lose Pye for 3 in 2 years like we might with Horsfall, and that is something to be cautious of course. But however, on the flip side of looking at that, if we kept him for another 2 years and lost him on a free, keeping a player of that quality for the next 2 years, you'd like to think that we would have reached our target of reaching the Championship by doing that. And I suppose, I don't know how stupid I want to sound when I say this, would you take losing Ethan Pye on a free in 2 years if it meant we got up to the Championship and stabilised in the Championship? Whilst that would be horrible to lose a player like that, and a player which has the potential to be a high-value player for us, if it meant that we got up to the Championship and, let's say, stabilised, then in the long run, we would be financially better off by being in the Championship year upon year and getting the TV deals and stuff like that. And as I say, stabilising and growing as a football club. So there's two ways of looking at it. But yeah, it would be disappointing to lose him on a free. It'd be disappointing to lose him full stop. And I think sometimes as well, does it change the way you look at a player when they leave, depending on how much you get from them? Because we've seen this happen higher up the leagues. We've seen it happen with Liverpool, of course, this season. They lost Trent Alexander-Arnold on a free transfer. He looks set to go to Real Madrid, and very much loved by Liverpool fans. He's sort of Alexander-Arnold prior to that news that he was leaving, and a completely different reaction by a lot of them when they found out he was leaving on a free transfer. And I think sometimes, like Ethan Pye, would we look at him differently if we got 15 million for him in either this year or next year? We'd look at it and go, fair play to him. If he ran his contract down, would we look at that differently? So, I don't know. Interesting. Fraser Horsfall, again, we could lose him on a free, which would be devastating. I mean, if you said to me a year or 2 years ago we'd lose Horsfall on a free, I'd be like, the world's ending sort of thing. I think because we've had players like Hills come in and Pye's sort of developed into a fine player himself. I wouldn't say I've relaxed on it a bit more, but I suppose I have to a degree. I think if we lose him, maybe it's because we're nearer to it now as well. If we lose him, we lose him. I don't really want to lose him, but if we do, it is what it is, and we've got to move on. there's still a bit of me which thinks he might just put pen to paper on that new deal, and we might hear something this week on that. But my mind is saying that Huddersfield have offered him a contract, and that there's a chance he goes there because he lives there already. I think in that area, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've heard him say that in an interview previously that he lives in Huddersfield. He's obviously from that area. I think he kind of grew up as a Huddersfield fan. I think so. There's a part of me which thinks he might be off there, which I think would be massively disappointing, especially on a free transfer. And I think the problem is, I've said it a few times now as well, highlighted it, we lose far too many players on free transfers. Now, that's obviously the level we're at and stuff like that, and the fact that the contract lengths, we're not really handing out 3 or 4 year deals very often because we've not been in a position where we can, finance that, because we don't know what league we're going to be in. Because we moved up the league so rapidly, we kind of not really want to hand out long-term contracts, because you don't want to move up a league and then suddenly that player isn't capable of playing in the league you're in now. And it's a bloody nightmare trying to shift the player. But also financially, you can't commit to giving someone a long-term contract whilst you're at this level, because you don't know what the future of your football club's going to look like. Obviously, if you go up the leagues, it's a bit more certain. So I think that once we go up the leagues and once we steady ourselves financially a bit more, we can start to hand out longer contracts, and therefore we can start to command higher transfer fees going forward, and we won't be losing players on a free transfer. I'm looking forward to getting to that point. Hopefully we do get to that point, because then you can really start to build and, build as a football club. And I think we've seen Middlesbrough do it a little bit as well. They've started to sort of either pick up players on the cheap or develop players from their academy, and then they sell them on for a fee, and they're able to, and they've been quite good, Middlesbrough, at doing that. But I think they've come at the expense of doing that. They probably leave themselves short at times, and they seem to always narrowly just about miss out on promotion, or they get to the playoffs and they might sort of lose in the semi-final. So I think that we would probably want to go down that sort of club model of developing players, but sometimes that can sell you short as well, because you always find yourself that sort of one player away then from maybe getting over the line. Who do you think we should bring in the players, and what positions? It's a good question. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to offer any expert analysis on players that I think we should bring in, because I'm not aware of I don't watch a lot of League One other than Stockport County. I don't watch a lot of the Championship really, other than the odd game here and there. And maybe I should going forward. Who knows? But in terms of positions that I think we need to target, I definitely think we're looking at a right back, if not 2. I think we possibly are looking at a left back as well. That can be a bit of a difficult area, because it depends on what happens with Ibitore, whether or not he puts pen to paper on a new deal. Then you've got to deal with Ryan Rydell. You can't really afford to have 3 left backs in the sort of first team. So I think that could be a position which is almost dependent on Ibitore signing that deal. I mean, if Ibitore signs a new contract, does Rydell then go out on loan, or do we end up looking to sell Rydell to bring in another left back? I don't know what would happen with that. We're certainly not going to be offering Ibitore a new deal to move him on. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with the left back. So that's probably one position is sort of a question mark over at the moment. Potentially a goalkeeper. We don't know what's happening with Ben Hinchliffe. Obviously, I think his contract is up maybe next year, if not the year before. Year after, sorry. I think that was a 2 or 3 year deal. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with Ben Hinchliffe. Would we look to bring a new goalkeeper? I was meant to mention actually as well the fact that Andrew Wogan, the of course backup keeper, has he's picked up. He's received a sort of under 21 call up from Republic of Ireland. So maybe we wouldn't look to sign a new goalkeeper with him potentially having a future at the club. Who knows? So maybe that's one area we don't need to strengthen. But at the moment, definitely looking at right back, potentially left back, potentially an extra body in midfield as well. Though it does look like we're a little bit bloated in that area. If I think if Collar moves on, which he could do, we might lose maybe another player here and there as well. So Odin Bailey might move on. So it would be maybe worth looking at strengthening that position, maybe 1 or 2 players as well. Wide players, I'd like to see maybe one or 2 wide players come in, and then potentially a striker, which we spoke about. Obviously, the difficulties with bringing in a striker with us already having 3 strikers which are gunning for first team minutes. So I think, like I said before, you can easily find a case where 4 or 5 players come in. So I think we will see a lot of players come in, but I think it's very dependent on who goes out. And I think County will want to know pretty much who's going out before we start to look at who's coming in. And I think obviously we'll probably use the loan market to a degree as well, which we managed to do a little bit like the season just gone. So I'm excited to see who comes in. I'd like to see us target some names that are in the Championship if possible, or players which are top end of League One. But as I say, in terms of players, player names and stuff, we can all chuck names out. We've sort of done it before. People have said in the past, "Oh, Langstaff, get him in," and that's probably a little bit of an older one now because maybe that was more relevant maybe a year or two ago. But the reality is there will be people who know more about who to pick. I think some people mentioned the left back from I think it's Rotherham. I don't know. I just think we'll hear more about players being linked to us in the next few weeks. Like I say, once we get a bit more of an update on what's happening with these players. I still think Southern and Collar are going to go. I think the wording of it is interesting. So I think we'll see them move on. So I think we'll definitely see us look to sort of replace in those areas. But I mean, that Southern and Collar, that's two players there, which they've been here 4 or 5 years at the club. So we've got good sort of longevity from those deals. We're in a good position because a lot of the players which have signed for us over the last few years, they come out of it having had success at the club, and that's both using the free transfer market or even the loan market as well. I think Stockport County are in a very strong position in terms of in the loan market, because if you're a Premier League club, or maybe a sort of mid to higher end Championship club, and you're looking to maybe loan a player out for for experience, Stockport County are a brilliant club to go to, and it's a proven track record now of look what's happened with Brad Hills. His value's probably gone up a few million. Look at Louis Barry and where his value was at prior to his loan move to Hull. On the flip side of it, there's examples like Mika Hamilton, which is coming on loan and barely got given half an hour during 6 months. So I'm like I said, I'm excited. I have no idea who's coming in. I don't know. I have no idea what positions we're going to target. I think it's also dependent on the fact for what formation does Challinor want to go with going into next season. Like I say, we've seen the 5 at the back at times this season. We've also seen us play with a 4, I think, and even a 4-4-2 at times in the latter end of the season, where I've actually preferred the look of us. But I think we're in a good position. Like I said before, it's not about big changes, it's about the right changes. I'm excited for the transfer window ahead, but I think it's good news. To bring it back to the topic, I think it's good news that Callum Camps has put pen to paper on a new deal. And I think he's at the right age. I think 29, like I say, it'll time down to he's 31. I think it's a good sort of... We got him for the best part of his career, and he's probably just approaching his peak now as well over the last few months. So I think it's a very good deal for Stockport County. As I say, I'm looking forward to hearing about what else is going to happen around the club over the next few weeks, and of course over the summer. Pinatar as well, which will be interesting. We know we're playing Bristol Rovers in that in that friendly now, and I'm sure we'll get more pre-season friendlies in the diary over the next few weeks as well. And I do think we'll hear some updates this week. As I say, I'm surprised we didn't hear anything else of it other than just the Camps news this sort of bank holiday weekend. But I'm sure we'll have another big update on the channel. From Stockport County this week, and of course I will be on the channel with that. So we've sort of been going 45 minutes here. I want to say a big thanks to everyone who has tuned in live. Big thanks to anyone who watches afterwards as well, of course. Don't forget to like the video as well. It does help. Subscribe if you are new. Like I said, big thanks to the chat as well. Big thanks to the questions. Hopefully you're all doing well. Hopefully you've all enjoyed the bank holiday weekend. And like I say, it will be a busy summer, I'm sure. And we will be on this channel to cover it all as and when it happens. So big thanks. And as I say, hopefully everyone enjoys the rest of the evening. So thanks for watching. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.